The second half of Clone Wars Season 3 doesn't look much like the first half. And start clearing off your DVRs for a week of Star Wars-related programming. It's Thursday, December 9th, and you'll hear about those stories and more this week in Star Wars. This Week in Star Wars is your source for new and noteworthy developments from the galaxy far, far away. I'm your host, Matt Fox. And now, this week's lead story. Over the past week, fans in select cities have been given a chance to see a sneak preview of the opening story arc from the second half of Season 3 of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. It has already been reported on numerous websites that the story arc revolves around the introduction and development of a new separatist villain, Savage Opress, who is related to Darth Maul, villain from Star Wars Episode 1. Beyond that, however, this podcast will not discuss the plot due to our strict This Week in Star Wars no-spoiler policy.
I've got some spoilers. You will die alone.
Special theater screenings of the first 3 episodes of the season have been shown this week at major cities across the country. Attendees have been given, amongst other gifts, free t-shirts and posters. And in addition to the 3 episodes, a new trailer for the rest of Season 3 is also shown at the end of the feature. This Week in Star Wars was fortunate enough to attend the local showing here in Washington, D.C., and we'll discuss that later in the episode. While you're waiting for the second half of Star Wars: The Clone Wars Season 3 to debut in January of 2011, there are a number of Star Wars-related programs that will be available to watch next week. As mentioned on an earlier episode, Star Wars Robot Chicken Episode 3 will premiere on the Cartoon Network on December the 19th. A trailer is now available to be seen on a number of websites. And this episode will double the length of the previous Robot Chicken installments, clocking in at a full hour. Subscribers to premium cable channel HBO will be able to watch the premiere on December the 12th of Carrie Fisher's Wishful Drinking, a documentary based on the popular one-woman show that our favorite princess has been taking across the country for the past several years. The documentary will feature actual footage of one of the performances, as well as backstage material and interviews. Go to HBO.com for air dates as well as a preview of the special. The final installment in this Star Wars-related troika is, of course, the Family Guy It's a Trap special, a parody of Return of the Jedi, which will be available on video December the 21st.
Me? I'm a collecting fool.
This week's collecting news: Star Wars items continue to be featured prominently in pre-holiday sales. Target this week is featuring a number of reduced-price Star Wars Lego sets, as well as a number of Hasbro toys, including the radio-controlled Hailfire droid for just $35. While at Target, keep an eye out for the Clone Wars dog tags available in the trading card section. And be aware that there are reports on the web that the Target-exclusive retro packaging 9-pack figure set is being marked down at some locations from $50 to $35. Sideshow Collectibles today put up for a pre-order Gartog, a new Gamorrean Guard 12-inch action figure, as well as a 12-inch scaled archway environment for Gartog to guard. Toys R Us has the Darth Vader voice changer helmet, $10 off at $30. The Boba Fett and Mace Windu Starfighter Deluxe Battle Pack is once again reduced in price to $80. And perhaps most impressively, although not a new item, the Clone Wars Deluxe Y-Wing bomber from last year's Clone Wars collection is on sale for $35, half off its original price. If you can't still find that in stores, it is available on the Toys R Us website. Star Wars Imperial Academy is the name of the new first-person shooter app that is available in the Apple iTunes App Store for the iPhone and iPod Touch. The game is free, although littered no doubt with many in-app purchases in order for the publishers to recoup their investment, and at the time of recording, the fans are evenly divided, with 461 people giving it a 5-star rating and 461 people giving it a 1-star or minimum rating. Dark Horse has 2 new titles available this week at your local comic book store. Knight Errant issue number 3, as well as the final trade paperback compilation of Star Wars Legacy. Our final story was going to be our lead story this week in Star Wars until it was learned today that the initial reports were, to put it charitably, exaggerated. British tabloid The Sun reported earlier this week that George Lucas was actively purchasing up the likeness rights to dead celebrities with the intention of inserting them digitally into new films. While this is not entirely a novel concept, as Fred Astaire was used as early as the 1990s to sell vacuums thanks to the assistance of special effects technology, these reports nonetheless set off the usual George Lucas firestorm of condemnation on the web almost instantaneously. In response, Lucasfilm issued the terse but fairly definitive statement that this is a false rumor. Nonetheless, it is enlightening to see just how quickly people will believe the worst about George Lucas's intentions. As I mentioned earlier in this episode, I was fortunate enough to be able to attend the screening here in Washington, D.C. of the Savaggio Press introduction story arc for the Clone Wars. While avoiding spoilers, I do feel comfortable in saying that these are 3 of the strongest episodes of the series we've seen yet, especially when considering that the first half of Season 3 was, shall we say, a bit dry. The new Obi-Wan and Anakin character models were on full display, and they looked very good, and very evocative of what they looked like as real people in Episode 3. For better or worse, Ahsoka does not make a single appearance in the story arc, and therefore it is impossible to judge the appearance of her new character model. While they do seem to be taking the Asajj Ventress character into a new direction that might make her more interesting, we're now faced with the situation where we have another arch-villain, in fact, several new villains, into a story that already has lots and lots of villains. That said, the animation is getting very, very good, and the twist at the end of this arc leaves me excited about where the season is going. Speaking of where things are going, I've finally figured out a good use for the This Week in Star Wars Twitter account, which, effective immediately, I will start using to post about more attractive and interesting Star Wars sales during the holiday season. Additionally, there will be one more episode of This Week in Star Wars before the Christmas holiday. It may or may not be next week, depending upon the level of news, or lack thereof, and I am looking at putting together some sort of end-of-the-year wrap-up roundtable like every other podcast in the galaxy. Watch your podcast feed for new episodes, as well as announcements on our Facebook page, Twitter account, as well as our website, as the schedule becomes more clear. And that was This Week in Star Wars. Join us again next week for more news, notes, and developments from the galaxy far, far away. Visit www.thisweekinstarwars.com or www.twisw.com for links to old episodes, news about the show, as well as links to some of the stories we discussed in today's program. You can follow us on our breaking news Twitter feed, TWISWcast, and we welcome comments on our Facebook page. We also welcome news suggestions, questions, and comments via email at host@thisweekinstarwars.com. Help us grow the community. If you enjoyed This Week in Star Wars, please go to iTunes and leave a positive review of the podcast. You've been listening to This Week in Star Wars. We troll the web so you don't have to.
This Week in Star Wars is not affiliated with Lucasfilm, its subsidiaries, or any other entity mentioned in this podcast. Star Wars, its characters, and creations are the property of Lucasfilm. All other trademarks are property of their respective trademark owners. This Week in Star Wars is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only. This podcast is copyright 2010 This Week in Star Wars. Invaluable technical assistance provided by WebStorm Interactive. News, comments, and questions can be directed to host at thisweekinstarwars.com. More information, links to stories presented, past episodes, and additional contact information are available at www.thisweekinstarwars.com.
I've got some spoilers. You will die alone.